Hello and good day to you. Today's video will be knitting the A-line skirt that we designed using the software Design on It. We need a 1x1 needle pusher, our transfer tool, double knitting yarn. The brand is Robin and the manufacturer is Thomas B. Ramsday. And also I'm using a multicolored yarn. It's known as paint box. The brand is also Robin and it's also a double knit yarn. We need our waist yarn, just this one is also a DK yarn, but little for waist yarn to act as waist yarn, and need a ravel cord, and of course our needle. Before then, we need a cast on comb with its connector. We might be using more needles as the pattern demands, and we'll be needing our needle bed. If I zoom out, you will see that my needle bed is really large or long because I extended it. You can see it in the previous video on how to extend your Lk150 or K360 knitting machine. I've already printed the pattern. Let me just place it so that you see. There I use this name sweater 57 to match a sweater I designed in a previous video. You can see that it's skirt multi, and I printed panel 2 because panel 1 and panel 2, they are the same instruction. I use garment text so that I can understand the changes that I'm going to make in each row. It's like interactive knitting too. And here is text summary. Normally it tells you the waist, hip, and hip depth, hip, and also it shows your tension and the numbers of needles to cast. Though the garment text also tells you the numbers that you should cast 88, but here it tells you the exact number, the exact needle that should be pushed forward, so that you don't need to start counting which is 80, how many needles gives you. You don't need to start looking for 88 needles. You just know that left needle, when you push left needle 44 to right needle 44, is 88. Also, here in this instruction, it didn't give us normally it gives us the welt to cast and how many rows to knit to form our welt. But it didn't give us because when designing the skirt, the welt or hem is going to be folded into two, and it was like a close cast on, but I'm not going to use that close cast on method. Instead, I'm going to change it to be a mock rib. So as it says, row 1 to row 19, I'm going to knit, I'm going to use this for mock rib instead of the welt, to act as my welt, sorry. So let's start knitting. I've already pushed 44 needles, that's 44 needles on the left and 44 needles on the right to work position. So with my 1x1 needle pusher, I'm going to place it on the second needle. Just to the camera so that you see it, and push it back. Every alternate needle, if you notice, every alternate needle is being pushed back to a position. I'll just repeat it across the needles. And if you notice, the last needle here went back because was pushed back because it's an even number. 88 is an even number, but I will increase it before I will increase it as we move on, so that I'll get the exact numbers of needle that is needed for the knitting pattern. So I'll zoom out, and we just knit with our waist yarn. We just cast. We just knit with our waist yarn. My carriage is set on both sides to knit stockinette, and with my waist yarn in my carriage, my stitch dial is set to 2. My stitch dial is set to 2 because I want to knit the welt, or I want to cast on. I'm still going to use it for welt. I'm not going to change my row counter now. I'll just knit across. And I'll hang my cast on comb. Then let me zoom out a little so that you see it. If you notice, my cast on comb is on the loop. You see it's holding the loop. Normal cast on method. Alright, I'll just knit about okay, after casting on, remember to hang the tail of your yarn. Remember to hang the tail of your yarn, this clip, at the end of this clip here, to secure it. You see me hang at the end of this clip here to secure it. Alright, let's just knit across. I'll knit more rows with the waist yarn. I'm using my hand to create a tension. Just knit the waist yarn first, and I'll end with my carriage on the left. Then that with my carriage on the left. You can see my carriage on the left. Now I'm going to thread my ravel cord using my hand to create a tension, and I'm going to knit one row across. I'll just tilt the camera a little so that it focuses on the needle bed, and you see, so that you see what I'm doing. You hang the tail of your ravel cord on the clip. Hang it at both sides, or on both sides on the clip to secure it. So now we're going to change our row counter to 000. Since I have 2 row counters on my needle bed, I'm going to change both of them to 000 because I'm going to knit the welt. And with my yarn feeder, my carriage at the right, I'm going to knit the welt now. But before I knit the welt, On the instruction, it says row 1 to row 9, row 1 knit 88, then up to row 19, then row 2 to row 19 as row 1. So what I'm going to do now is that since that's going to act as my welt and I'm going to fold it, I want to make a mock rib as my welt instead of a closed cast on or an cast on. So what I'm going to do is to knit 20 rows so that my carriage will be on the right, and we'll knit an increase or decrease as the pattern states. So with my main yarn in my yarn feeder and my tension still on, my stitch die still on 2 because I want to knit my welt, I'll knit 20 rows from right to left. Though the instruction says knit 19 rows, but I will have to put my carriage on the right so that I can follow my pattern properly. And normally they say if you want to knit any welt, you have to start at the right. After knitting, you can knit one additional row to put your carriage at right. So what is going to happen, I'll just zoom down a little and pick my loops to form the welts. Just want to focus the camera so that you see what I'm doing. Alright, if you notice, I'm picking this loop right. I'm picking the loops just before this loop here, after the ravel cord, or depend on it's before in some place or after, but I'm picking this loop here, and I'm picking its alternate loop on top. Some people pick just the upper bottom loop, but I love picking both loops. Don't know if you can see it. Let me tilt the camera a little so that you see my work properly. Okay, I think it's well focused. Alright, so, and I'll hang it on the second needle. Have to be careful. Let me push. I'll push my needles a bit forward. I don't want them to drop stitches. Okay, I've picked it, and I'm picking the upper loop here, this coordinating upper loop. You can see I have 2 loops now. I'll pull this needle out, then I'll transfer this bottom loop onto this last needle to secure it properly. If we zoom in, you see it clearly that I've transferred it. So I'll just pick the second loop here and pick its coordinating upper loop and hang it in the needle that was in A position. I'll continue in this process across the needle bed, or across all needles that I'm supposed to work on. I've already picked the loop across, but there's one other loop here. If you notice this, the ravel cord at this edge is hanging on it. You have to pick it. It's very tight, so I'm trying to loosen the ravel cord so that I can get it properly. The ravel cord is hanging on it. You have to pick it. It's the loop before the last second to last loop, and here you have the second to last loop. You still have to pick that loop up and its coordinating upper loop. So now we finished picking our loops. I'll just zoom out so that you see the full needle pair, and you see that we've picked our loops. Our what has disappeared. Alright, it's time for us to knit the skirt. I'll just push out my needles to hold position because I'm not doing any pattern knitting. Just the stitch pattern I'm knitting is stockinette. So I'll just push it to hold position so that none of my needles drop their stitches. And since I won't be using this yarn again, yarn I use for my welt, I'll break it off. I'll break off the yarn. I won't be needing it. So I'll take my main yarn. First of all, I'm still going to leave my row counter on. I'm not going to change my row counter because of the since I altered the welt, instead of knitting straight adjustment, so I'm just going to continue from there without changing the row counter. Then I'll know how many rows I've knitted. The only thing I'll do now is to change my stitch dial to 3 so that it starts the main design. I'll knit one row from right to left. And I'll just zoom in so that you see. I carried it at the left now. And you know, here the pattern says that before we knit row 20, we should decrease 1 stitch at left and 1 stitch at right. Since I did 20 rows for my welt, I'm altering just this part to, I'm going to decrease at row 21 and before I knit row 22 instead. Since I made my welt up to 20 to make an even number, I'm just going to say, okay, let me decrease my welt. Let me make the decrease that I missed in row 20. Before row 20, I'll do it now. Before row 22. Since I've knitted row 21 now. Okay, so I'll decrease 1 at left and 1 at right. But I don't need to decrease 1 at right because I already missed 1 needle while making my welt. You know, the welt's supposed to be an even number. and I was also increase one, but since we are going on decrease, I'll just leave that one out and just decrease one to my left. I'll zoom in so that you see how I'm going to do my decrease. Still my normal way of decrease. I'm going to take the stitch from the second needle. I'm going to move it onto the first needle. Take both stitches and move it back onto the second needle and push the first needle out of work position. And I'm going to make one row across. So you see, that's how I do my decrease. And it's a very nice way of decreasing because it gives you a kind of neat edge. And since I'm using sewing machine to put my knitting together, it also helps to have those kind of edges. Alright, I'm trying to get a good view. You see the progress of our knitting as we keep on knitting. So I'm going to continue until row 26. Then I will do another shaping. You know my stitch dial is on 3. I have to do one shaping here. I have to decrease one at left. I'll zoom in so that you see how I do the decrease. And I have to decrease one at right. I'm going to move the second stitch from this needle. I'm going to move it onto the first needle and move both stitches. Don't know if you can see, let me tilt it a little. And move both stitches onto the second needle and move that needle out of work position. I'm going to take the camera to this other end, the right hand side, because we are doing both the decrease on both end of the needle bed. Right, and I'll zoom in so that you see how I do the decrease to here. Okay, I'm taking the stitch from the second needle, moving it onto the first, move both stitches and putting them back onto the second and moving the first out of work position. So I have decreased. I'll just zoom out so that we continue knitting our skirt. So when I get to row 33, we're going to make another chain. change. We're going to decrease one at left and one at right. So I'll just zoom in. Take the stitch from the second needle. Let me move the camera in a little. I think you have to see this. I'll move this stitch from the second needle, move it onto the first needle, move both stitches and put them back onto the second needle, then move the first out of work position. Where are we supposed to? Okay, we're decreasing on both the left and the right hand side. So I'll take the camera onto the right hand side of the bed and we're going to decrease there. I'm going to take the stitch from the second needle. I'll take it and move it onto the first needle and move both stitches from the first needle back onto the second. The first needle is out of work position. So I'll zoom out so that I'll continue knitting and you see our knit and you see our work. So I just keep on knitting until row 40. So we need to do another decrease and we're going to decrease one at left, only the left side this time. So I'll zoom in. For us to do our decrease, we'll take the stitch from the second needle, move it onto the first, take both stitches back onto the second needle and put the first needle out of work position because we are decreasing. So I'll just continue, I'll just knit one row and then we'll do a decrease at the left and at the right hand side. So I've set row 41, which we've knitted now. Before row 42, we decrease one at right. I'll just tilt the camera to the right hand side, zoom in, so that you see us doing the decrease here. I'll take the stitch from the second needle. Let me tilt it a little. Take the stitch from the second needle, move it onto the first needle, take both stitches from the first needle, move it onto the second and move the first needle out of work position because we are decreasing. So I'll zoom out and we'll continue knitting until the next shaping. So the next shaping is going to take place when I'm knitting row 47. So this row 47, I'll be decreasing one at left, and then I'll knit one row and decrease one at right. This is just a simple A-line skirt for a little girl. It can fit the sweater that we knitted in the previous video. So I'm just going to tilt it and do the decrease at this other end of the bed. Oh, sorry, I'm not doing the decrease now until I knit one row, then I'll do the decrease. So let me knit the row. Let's follow the pattern. Alright. It's time for me to do the decrease. The right hand side of the bed. So you can have this as a skirt and that sweater as the top. Coordinate it very well. And wrap your presents very well. Can be used as gifts for a little girl for this Christmas season. Okay, so I'll just continue knitting until row 55, where we'll do another decrease. Let me zoom out so that you see our full work as we progress. Row 55 now. We have to decrease one at left and one at right. I'll just do the one at the right first, then I'll do the one at the left next. You already know the normal decrease method I do use, so I'm still using that same method. I've not changed. So just across until row 69, when I'll do another decrease. So just continue knitting. You can see the progress of our knit. So we need to do a decrease at the left and a decrease at the right. So I mean, when I'm doing the decrease now, row 70. Look at my row counter, but no problem. Okay. So take stitch in it properly. Just manually knit it. Okay. Take the second stitch and move it onto the first needle. Take both stitches, remove the first needle out of work and move the stitches onto the second needle. So this row 7, okay, I have to repeat it on both sides of the bed. Have I done the side? No. So I just to the camera while I decrease this end of the needle bed. Alright, zoom out so that I see how I work as I knit. Continue knitting. So until row 82 before we make another change. Push this one out. Okay. 82 now, and we have to do another decrease, one at the left and one at the right. This time I'm not going to zoom in so that I'll be fast, because we need to stitch this skirt up. Okay, so now we have until row 95, then we'll do another decrease. Because my stitch, oh, I dropped a stitch here. I had to pick it up and knit it manually. Yeah, zoom in so that you see how I dropped a stitch there, and I've been knitting just about 2 rows. And I have to pick it up, and I have to pick it up. I'll just lift these 2 loops up and make sure the loop before this come into the hook of the needle, and I'll manually knit it in. Then remaining this loop, I'll lift it up, bring the needle, lift it up, bring the needle underneath it, and the loop should be in the hook, and I'll just manually knit it. So picked up my stitch. All right, let's zoom out and I love this self-pattern yarn. It's very beautiful, especially in manual beds like this. Okay, so now on to row 95. 95 now. Let me lose that loop. Alright, it's 95 now, and I have to do another decrease. I'll just decrease without zooming in and out, since you already know my method of decreasing. Because you have to make two panels like this, two skirt panels. I've already done I've already done the panel, the first panel, the front panel, so I'll use this as the back panel. Okay. So I'm just going to knit one row. Then what's going to happen here is that I'm going to take a piece of my waist yarn. Just going to take a piece of my waist yarn. What I want to do is I'll cut it just like your tension. So I want to put a mark so that I know where I'm going to bend to make my to form the band for my skirt. So I'm taking a piece of two strands, sorry, of yarn. I'm just going to hang it. I'm not knitting it, I'm just hanging it on the loop of the needle. If you can, I'll zoom in for you to see at each edge. Let me zoom into this one so that you see. You see, I'm just hanging it on it. It's going to knit it together, and and if I take the camera across to the other end, you see that it's just hanging there. I'm not knitting it in. I'll knit it with the carriage. This because if I knit it in, it's going to give me an extra row. I don't want hole in my work, so I'm going to knit it in with the carriage. I want a marker. This strand is acting as a marker because so that I'll know where to bend my band, to bend my work to form my band up to. All right, we are going to just knit straight ahead until row 144. Then we'll cast off. Just putting my needle since (13, 14). So I'll take my yarn. I've knitted 144 rows now. Let me go back a little so I see our full work. This is our skirt, and I want to cast on. But before I cast on, I'm going to remove my cast on comb. Just going to remove my yarn from it. Just take them off that clip, and I've removed my cast on comb. So we'll be using transfer tool for cast off. Sorry, I'm going to remove my yarn from my carriage, and I'll zoom in so that you see how I'm going to cast off. Let me just focus the camera on the needle. I've already made the second panel, so the next is the same as this. So to cast off, let me just take you through this technique. To cast off, wind the yarn first through around the hook of the first needle and manually knit it in. Take the second, like how you decrease. You take the stitch from the second needle, move it onto the first needle, take both stitches and move it back onto the second needle, wind the yarn around. Now you're gonna wrap the yarn around the needle, make sure it's in the hook, and you just knit it. I'll repeat the step again. You pick the second stitch from the second needle, transfer it onto the first needle, take both stitches from the first needle and put it back into the second needle. Move the first needle out of work position, wrap your yarn around the hook of the first needle, and you manually knit it in. I'm going to repeat it again, then I'll do the others off camera so that we'll get our meshing for stitching up the A-line skirt. Wrap your yarn around and you knit it. Take the stitch from the second needle, move it onto the first needle, take both stitches from the first needle and put it onto the second needle. Remember to move the first needle out of work position, wind your yarn around the needle and you knit it. So this is how you cast off. There are various methods of casting off. You can just remove your knitting with the waist yarn, but we need this edge, so we can cast off like this. And I'll just continue the others later on. The next step, we're going to get our knitting machine. We're going to get our sewing machine and going to stitch it up. You need your elastic now for the next step. Get your elastic, a safety pin, your sewing machine with a coordinating thread, and let's stitch up our skirt. So here's our A-line skirt. If you notice, I still have my waist yarn here, and I have to remove it because I still have my ravel cord attached. So I just pull my ravel cord and the waist yarn will come off easily. If you don't have any knot in your ravel cord, it will come out easily too. Okay, so my waist yarn is out and see my ravel cord. What you're going to do now is to pin the front of the skirt to the back of the skirt, or panel 1 to panel 2. So I have my safety pins, but I have my sewing pin, I'm going to use it to pin now. I'm going to line them up, this panel 2 and this panel 1. Right side facing right side, or knit side facing knit side, with purse side facing me and purse side on the table. I'm going to start pinning just the side of the skirt because we are sewing the side of the skirt. Let me use a green pin so that I see the... Okay, let me pin down because of the way I'm going to sew it on the machine. You know, we have this marker here, you still have to leave it on. We'll remove it after we finish stitching. So I'll just pin the skirt quickly. And so you see I've pinned, so I'll pin it up to the welt. Line them up neatly and pin them. Make sure the welt lines, you know, I'm using a multi-yarn, and the welt is different from the body, from the panels of the skirt, or should I say the bodies of the skirt. So I have to make sure it lines properly. And I just pin this onto the others off camera. Make sure your welt lines up properly. And also put another one here to make so that it do not move. Good, okay. Putting one here. Alright, I'll do the other one off camera, and after that I'll come back. I've set my upper tension on the sewing machine to a standard tension, and I'm going to be using stitch 5. It's a back stitch, and my tension again on the lower thread, I set it to between 1 point. Let me set it to 2. I think I wanted 2. Okay, it's going to be on 2 now. Okay, it's on 2 now, and the stitch I'll be using is 5, which is you can see there, it's a back stitch. So we'll start sewing now. Just focus the camera on the sewing machine so that we sew the sides, both sides of the normal sewing procedure. Just move back a little and forward to tighten your stitch. I'm just using a slight, I'm not stretching my knitwear. I'm just and my stitch seam is very little, not too much. I'm just using like 1 row to act as a seam allowance. You can use 2, but it all depends on you. Don't make it too bulky. And make sure you arrange it so that they stitch properly together. I finished sewing now, so all we need to do is make the hem of our garment and we'll come back. Yes, our skirt, also the side has been sewn. So what we need to do now is mark our hem. Sorry, our waistband. And I'm going to just fold the upper part of this knitwear to this marker I placed here to act as a waistband, to know where the limit where I should bend it to form my waistband. I'll repeat same for the other side. And you stitch. While we are stitching, we'll leave a small opening for us to thread in our elastic. And after we finish, then you just make sure you don't stitch on the front panel and the back panel together. or the upper panel, or both panels together. Just line it properly. And you can use your elastic as a guide to see if it will pass through without giving an allowance on it. Let me zoom in so that you can see it properly. Your elastic should, you can also use it as a guide to see, okay, it's going to pass through and there's going to be allowance without my elastic bending or coiling. So we'll just continue pin the others and we'll stitch it, leaving an opening for us to thread the elastic. Repeat same for the other side of the Alright, so now we're going to stitch. And remember to leave an opening for your elastic. For my elastic, for sewing my elastic, I'm going to be using stitch die 15, which is a zigzag stitch. And you can see my tension is still on, the lower tension is on 2 and the stitch dial is on 15. Also up, the standard tension is just that triangle. I've already threaded my elastic. Let me bring it closer so that I see. I left an opening so that I can thread my elastic through. I've already threaded my elastic. Remember, you have to make your elastic a little smaller than the waistband of your knitwear or of your skirt. You want it to gather a bit, and elastic stretches. So if you make it smaller, it fits properly, and if the person if the child grows slimmer, it can stretch and also fit. Or if the child goes slimmer or add a little bit of weight, it can still stretch and fit. So we're going to stitch this edge now. That's why I'm selecting a zigzag stitch. We need to remove this phrase, and also when we stitch it here with zigzag stitch, and it's going to be satin like that, the stitches are going to be very close to each other. You will see that you wonder that it's going to poke out and become uncomfortable. After doing that, we're going to lie it flat again like so, and we'll restitch it with the zigzag stitch. So let's start stitching. Alright, if you see now, I've stitched it. Let me zoom out so that you see clearly. I've stitched it. I just put it against this parts. Okay, let's get it in. You see now that I've stitched it zigzag. Let me trim this phrase from here. All right, it's a bit neat now. All right, you see now that it's zigzag. I just put my hand, and the color is sort of light. So yes, okay, you can see now that zigzag, but it's going to, if we leave it in the band like that, it's going to pucker. You see, it's going to become uncomfortable, especially when it comes to the side of this when it comes to the side of this garment, means that the person wearing it will be uncomfortable, that something is like poking her there. So we're going to lay it flat again and zigzag over it so that it becomes flat. You see my hand running over it flat like that? That's what we're going to do. We have to close now. You can see now that it's so flat. I think I have to zoom out a little for you to see this one. Okay, now it's so flat, my hand can just lie flat on it without, see, my nails can't even go under, my hand can't go under anymore. It's not standing up straight. So we're just going to stitch this we're going to cover this opening, but you can leave it if you desire. Let me just stitch it. Oh, I have to set my stitch back to 5. I forgot. To the back stitch. So it's the same stitch. Okay, we are through with our garment. Here's our finished skirt. You can see that we have the gathers at the edge, at the band of the skirt. It fits, can fit it. You see the elasticity of it, can fit the little child now. I made one previously or earlier, depends on which one I like. Okay, we have this one. The welt is multi, and the bodice is plain. Well, thank you for watching, and you can join me in the next video when we knit a gathered skirt for a little girl. And also we'll be knitting a round neck sweater with a shoulder opening, buttonhole shoulder opening for a 0 to 3 months old baby. Thank you.